Hello and welcome to the beginning of an exploration of the Batman movies of the 1990s. Each film in the series varies greatly in how they choose to adapt the Caped Crusader, even though they were intended to be the same version of the character, following a sometimes accidental character arc. One of the reasons these films vary so much is the change in director between Batman Returns and Batman Forever. Tim Burton, the director of the first two films, Batman and Batman Returns, saw the world of Batman as a gothic fairy tale with a 1940s noir influence. And Joe Schumacher, the director of the second two films, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, saw the world as a campy comic book come to life, reminiscent of the 1960s show. This episode focuses on the two Tim Burton films and how they tackle the Dark Knight, and, more specifically, how these films characterize Batman's masculinity. The 1989 Batman film is a neo-noir. A noir film is difficult to define since noir, even though it is perceived as a genre, doesn't really behave like one. It's more of a feeling. According to Frank Kruitner's book, In a Lonely Street, Film Noir, Genre and Masculinity, the noir style is possibly a hybrid set of stylistic practices generated through the combination of several pre-existing genres. This view has been put forward by several critics. Burton Charmatan, for example, commented that the film noir seems to synthesize the horror film, the gangster film, and the social problem film genres of the 1930s. Most definitions suppose genre are constituted by the films in said genre, because film noir lacks the unified conventions that would make it seem more like a genre. The style and tone is the only thing truly connecting all these films, making it more like a movement. Neo-noir, according to Jason Hellman's article, check out the neo-noir definition and its central examples, refer to noir films made after the 1950s, particularly in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, through today. But the question might be asked, why did Burton and Company decide to make this expensive Batman film that would be marketed towards children a film noir? Answer: because it brings the character back to its roots. Batman originally began as a pulp hero, a morally ambiguous detective that fought gangsters and criminals, and since these were the comics that the studio gave Tim Burton, who had a very limited knowledge of the character before working on the film, it became a noir to match the tone of these comics. With this being a noir, the film, of course, follows the path that the style forces masculinity to follow. Krunek defines three types of narrative-based subcategories: the investigation thriller, the male suspense thriller, and the criminal adventure thriller. Batman is definitively an investigation thriller, since that is defined as a story where the hero, often a professional detective, seeks to restore order and to validate his own identity by exposing and countermanding a criminal conspiracy. Or, in this case, Batman stopping the Joker from committing mass murder and, in the process, tried to recover from his trauma. The noir detective wants justice, but is willing to break the law to do so, believing they are above the police. The noir hero also does not seem to value life, including their own. This style works for an early days Batman, because it shows how his trauma is affecting him, and it gives the perfect starting point to go from vigilante who inspires fear to superhero who inspires hope. That's why 2022's The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, is even more of a neo-noir than the '89 film. Starting such a dark, morally ambiguous place makes the rise to true heroism so much more satisfying. Speaking of the journey, Batman Returns, while still being a noir, with elements like the femme fatale and the morally ambiguous hero, is a campy noir, which, while it does seem like a contradiction, is an intentional contradiction. To explain that, the term camp needs to be defined, and one of the best ways to do so is to discuss Susan Sontag's 1964 essay, Notes on Camp. Summarizing points, camp is a style that embraces the strange and disregards the natural. It highlights the artifice of the world by exaggerating it to the point it cannot be taken seriously, and, even though it is silly, it treats itself with the utmost seriousness. The film exists in this highly gothic environment dripping with German expressionism. The villain's insanity brings this chaotic, queer, horny energy that brings this depressing grandeur to the film. The Penguin being this twisted Moses figure. But why does this movie inject this queer camp into this noir world? Besides the fact that they gave Tim Burton a blank check. It's because it contrasts with Batman's world. This film begins a exploration of Batman's dual identity. Is he Batman or is he Bruce Wayne? The film explains that Vicky Vale, the love interest from the first film, left him because he couldn't prioritize one over the other. His own insanity getting in the way of his relationships. So he feels that he now has to choose to find his happiness. Every element of the film is built around this idea, especially Batman's foil. The Penguin represents the bat without the man, referred to as the freak or an animal, a psychotic, toxically masculine murderer who is really just a traumatized child looking for mommy. Max Schreck is the man without the bat, this murderous, insane man who tries to hide his freakishness from the outside world under the guise of a put-together businessman whom the citizens should love. Catwoman is a dark mirror to Batman. She is in the same place as Bruce, an insane person who's struggling with balancing a dual life, but instead of having to do it over years like Bruce, it happens to Selena over the course of a week. This is why it works so well as a couple. They understand each other in a way that probably no other person on the planet will, but she dies because she was unable to rectify the two halves of herself, falling deeper into her madness. Since Batman is still trying to hold on to his role as the noir detective, he becomes the straight man, the one who's not in on the joke like the others, contrasting him with the rest of the cast. To bring this back to masculinity, Bruce is literally fighting against the masculine role he has used as a crush for so long. If you read the dual identity as a queer allegory, or more directly, a closet metaphor, he is fighting against this massive persona he has used to hide who he truly is from the world, unclear what his new role should be, whether he should be out. With the introduction of camp into this world and Bruce asking a question that could lead to a path to some form of healing, the world of Gotham City will change. Just like in the comics, the more serious storytelling will become more fun, comedic tales, the shadows placed with neon. But that will need to wait for the next episode where we will explore the fun, zany world of Joel Schumacher's Batman.